Well guys, here we are. We got ourselves another project type of video. I'm hoping this is going to be a good project video. Get a few things going here, get a few things done, and well, away we go. So of course behind this door is the subject of our video. So of course let's wing open our doors. So of course, as you see here, we have our wonderful marathon trailer. I've had this trailer now, like I said, since 2010 or so. It's been through a lot. It's done quite a bit of work, quite a bit of heavy work. I haven't really treated it the way that it should have been treated. So therefore it's showing a little bit of wear and, you know, of course I've talked about it in update videos and, you know, on my vlogging channel a bit on some of the work it needs. Of course it needs one taillight fixed here. There's a little bit of a dent in the bodywork there that I need to rough out. That dent's been there for a while, but I have no idea how the taillight got broke. It wasn't broke here a winter before or so. Of course the wiring quit working a few years back. I just never really fixed it because, well, just never did it. And of course the biggest problem that I got here is a few years ago when I dug the hole for the shed. I put like, it had to have been 4 yards of dirt on this here trailer, which of course bent the tongue of the trailer. I'm not 100% sure if the bend is in the square tubing between the coupler and the tongue, or if it's in the actual tongue itself or the triangle plate there that's underneath my boat winch. So pretty much we can get at her, get that all tore apart and see where the problem is, as well as I can properly install the jack. You know, this jack has been kind of flopping around and loose for years. It never really fit this trailer properly to begin with, and it was kind of a, you know, afterthought, I guess. Of course, I'd like to tear apart the hubs, re-grease the bearings, make sure everything's good to go for another season. You know, rebuild the wiring, you know, wire the whole trailer again, because, well, it's got a break in the wire somewhere from back to front. It might be just a bad ground, but we'll have to trace that back and, well, figure that out too. But pretty much, guys, they're going to get all set up here, get things going, and yeah, let's see how she goes. Okay guys, so here we are. Pretty much time to take apart this here wonderful collection of disaster here. Hopefully the lighting is okay, because that's the best we're pretty much going to have for right now. So of course we'll start by well, untangling this mess that we have right here. Pretty much we have ourselves, of course, the safety chain, which as you see here, this one's technically broke. This one here is still good. And of course you got the wiring, which as you can tell has no pins left on it. And it's actually been drug quite a fair distance at times, as well as the you know, split loom here is quite well, split and broke, which stands a good chance of having dirt, rocks or whatever in the wiring anyways. And then you have our wonderful, well, boat winch here. Of course I've never hauled a boat on this here trailer, but this is back in the day when I used to drag home riding lawnmowers that were non-running or broke. Rather than having to lift them, I basically would snap the winch around, I don't know, something solid on the tractor and basically drag it up and basically drag it up onto, well, the trailer. This was not no professionally installed boat winch. It was kind of just, you know, put on there with a hardware U-bolt kind of a deal. Basically bolted on down and away you go. Ideally, if you were going to mount, you'd use the holes in the center and mount it to something pretty solid. But hey, for my case, this did the job, and really, away we went. So basically, guys, let's spin this off, and then, well, we'll continue on. Basically, guys, there we go. As you see there, that was just a standard hardware store U-bolt for fastening down, I don't know, your dog or a 2x4 to a wall or whatever's. Basically, it had no structural strength at all. if you were hauling up anything really heavy, you know, as you see there, it would have continued bending till eventually it probably, you know, would have snapped. Well, of course, got the bolt winch unbolted, of course, as you've seen. Now you may be able to see by the camera here, the main part of the bend is actually happening right in here. If you can see here, you see the tin is supposed to be flat coming into here and then all the way to the curve. Well, you can actually see this whole you know, coupler and tubing is actually tried to pull up on through. That'll be where a lot of the flex or the bend has come from here, as well as you see on the side here. We got you know, some tearing of the metal there as well, and probably the same, a little bit of you know, stress cracking over here too. When you look at this triangle piece in here, it looks to me that this bolt here has you know, is starting to tear through that back hole as well. So just at first glance, it looks like I'm gonna have to probably take out this triangle piece, try to hammer that steel back in, you know, semi straight positioning, and then of course make my own triangle piece out of something stronger, maybe going a little further back with maybe a longer, you know, a longer square tubing like that, and then away you go, right? So of course we'll probably start now by taking off this wonderful trailer jack. If my plans go the way I want them to go, then we will have, of course, room in here to put a better jack on here. So we'll start by removing that, and then of course we'll work to remove the coupler. The coupler itself is okay to reuse for now. And then of course once the coupler's off, we'll drop the safety chains out of there because they're basically scrap now. And then we'll start working on the triangle piece there. First have to unbolt it, and then we'll see what it looks like from there. Okay, so now unfortunately, being this wonderful jack's been on this trailer for, well, a while anyway, the bolts have rusted, of course, due to the low quality of the bolts. So therefore, the threads are buggered because probably, you know, it's rattled around a bit on there, got a little bit worn. And basically they will not back out. Now I probably could get forceful with it, you know, get a bigger wrench or, you know, get a hammer or whatever's, and you know, force it off that way, or I probably could squirt it with you know, PB Blaster or whatever and work at it for an hour. But of course I'm probably just going to do the method that I probably should have done with to begin with. I'll fire up the old angle grinder, zip these two bolts off, and then away they go. Now of course when you sight up the rail here, you actually maybe can notice, but the rail has a bit of a twist in it. That's from the wonderful jack itself. When it was tight on that frame, it didn't have the strength, I guess, to support I guess the weight of the trailer and the weight of the garbage in it. Even though it was never loaded with anything heavy, well, it was basically on the jack. Anytime it ever had a lot of weight in it was when it was on, well, the, you know, truck, right? So of course looks like the rail itself has a little bit of a bend in it, which you probably could give her a couple of good old hits with a hammer to, well, work that out. So now we got the jack you know, off the trailer, we can start working on the coupler there. Of course those bolts there look like they're fairly you know, reasonable quality, so they should spin out without a lot of hassle. So of course the original coupler, although we can see it's seen well, a little bit of wear and scratches in here, is still in fully workable, functioning condition. You know, it's not damaged or bent or anything like that, so you know, it's well usable. So of course keep those bolts that we took out, because we'll probably end up putting them back in. One thing I noticed right off the bat here, this wasn't a solid piece of square or rectangle tubing. It's actually basically a U-channel, if you want to say. I guess, you know, it cuts cost, I guess. It cuts material cost and makes the trailer lighter by, I don't know, what, you know, 1/8 of a pound or whatever. So of course, probably unbolt the safety chains, get those out of the way, and then kind of work our way back. Okay guys, so here we are. Ran into a little bit of a snag, of course. You know, when you're dealing with something that's bent and kind of mass produced, you're going to have some issues eventually, right? So of course these two bolts here is what holds the tubing that the coupler bolts onto. They run all the way through to the bottom side. And these bolts here, which you would think would run all the way through to the bottom side as well, or at least that's how I would build it, they're actually only just bolts basically that go into a blind nut on the backhand side. Basically they just thread on in. Of course no real biggie, but I did twist one off as part of my plan. That's not really a big deal anyway, because like I said, I want to remake this triangle piece, make it back longer and you know, of course stronger. However, of course up here I've twisted off what looks to be the threaded piece that goes from the triangle piece that the bolt runs on into, right? So of course that's still not really a huge hurdle or, you know, drawback or problem, because I can just take my grinder, buzz off that head of the bolt, and effectively turn that bolt into like this, and it works the same. However, I've been sitting here thinking, you know, I've got two pieces of tin that are already bent, already stressed, you know, already cracked. And if I were to build my new triangle piece, put it on in here, sure, it would be an extra 4 inches longer or so. But at the same time, it's still going to be weak up here from where it's cracked and bent already. Even if I were to straighten this and give that a light weld with, you know, the welder or so, fill that crack in, it's still going to be semi-weak here. And this is a galvanized trailer as well, so you know, it's not going to be 110% good to be welding with this stuff anyways. And then, of course, not to mention that bend down there, it's actually pushed inward as well as twisted. Effectively, eventually, that'll be a weak point on the trailer too. You know, that could crack around there, or you know, whatever's, right? Or it could just stay the way it is for the rest of the life of the trailer. You never know, right? One of the ideas I had about doing here was just going down to, you know, Princess Auto and getting one of the A-frame trailer couplers, you know, the one-piece deal. Has a hole in it for the jack and the coupler at the other end, slapping it on there and bolting it on down. I still might end up doing that, providing that the angles work the way they're supposed to. That would be a quick, easy, painless way of dealing with it. You basically would run your bolts, or at least I would run my bolts all the way through, you know, from the top side to the bottom side, and it would kind of strengthen the area as well as eliminate the leverage between the tubing and the triangle. Because really, basically what's going on is the coupler, the tubing here, is trying to pull through the frame rails, or the tongue rails there. So by putting that A-frame coupler on there, kind of a one-piece dealie, you won't have the leverage of pulling on through, and it would save you all the time of fabbing up, welding up a whole new setup, right? And then as for that, you could hit it a few times with a hammer and just keep an eye on it. Because really, it's not like I'm hauling a lot of loads long distances anymore with this trailer. you know, this trailer's been retired to more dump runs and around town, so really it doesn't really get out on the highway anymore for long distances. And really, I'm pretty sure that little bend or flex or whatever you want to call her will be perfectly fine. So basically, guys, I guess I got to make on down to the wonderful parts store, pick up some goodies. I had to go down there anyway, so I'm going to go down there, get my parts. And, well, for me it'll probably be a half hour. For you it'll be right back here in like 2 seconds. Okay guys, so here we go, a little bit of an update for you. Well, hit a little bit of a snag, but I guess that's to be expected. Of course, the A-frame coupler or so that I wanted to buy from, well, the trailer store does not fit these angles. And in order for me to get it to fit the angles, I have to extend it further out, which means that it's only going to be catching on, you know, the weakest part of the tongue or the hitch anyways. So basically that defeats the purpose of putting it on. And basically anyways, it only comes down just a few inches on the side, so you can't even run a bolt in the side. And as you get loaded up again, that metal is going to keep on tearing, if you want to say, and then it defeats the whole purpose, right? So of course the next alternative I have is to send this out to one of the welding shops or fab shops, get it all basically fabbed up proper, right, and away you go. I know if I was set up properly, you know, with a tubing bender like I want and my plasma cutter, I could make what I want. I'm just not set up properly to do it. So of course I've got, if I remember correctly, 4 bolts to undo. There's 2 at the back and then 2 just right up at the front here where the tongue goes into the trailer. And then cut the wiring, and then basically it's basically good to go. So what I'll do, guys, is I'll undo those 4 bolts and away we go. Okay guys, so here we go. As you see here, the trailer is now propped up in the air. Of course, I tried the normal method, crawling under there with wrenches to undo these cheap rusty bolts, and of course that failed. So the next thing was to grind away the head of the bolt. Now of course I'll show you on this one here. If you noticed, it's actually started to pull its way through. If you notice, there's actually a hole here where it's actually started to tear. The bolt is actually supposed to be over an eighth of an inch or so. So really, in a way, it's a good thing that this is happening, because it gives me a chance to catch this before it pulls all its way through. When I go to rebuild this thing, I'll probably have to put a washer over top of it or something like that to make sure it doesn't do it again. Most of the time I had a plywood floor in this here trailer. So, you know, if those things were moving, I wouldn't have noticed it anyway, and if those things would have fallen out, I wouldn't have noticed it until we had a failure on the side of the road. So of course, taking my wonderful grinder again, grinding away on these bolts, and away we go. So pretty much once those 2 bolts are undone, this hitch basically drops right down, touches the ground, and you just have the back 2 bolts or pivot points to do. The reason why they made them this way is when they're shipped to the retail store, these tongues or the hitches fold back up underneath the trailer so they can ship them in a smaller space. In a way, that's a genius idea. It shaves on shipping. but at the same time, to me, it makes a weak point in the trailer. So basically, I just push on, well, what used to be the coupler. And well, there she goes. So right there is one bolt that I have to undo. Of course, there's the corresponding bolt on the back side. I still got to cut the wiring before she's fully lodged or free or anything like that. Other than that, she is, well, coming along pretty good. Well guys, there we go. Got it off the trailer, propped up against the door here. Of course, the last two bolts on the pivots, or the rear mounts, if you want to say, pretty much right there. Well, they fought me every thread of the way. Even with PB Blaster on it twice and letting her soak twice, it still fought me quite well. Of course, this is the first time I've had an underlook at the underside of this trailer since I had my, well, first once over at it all those years ago. I will say, they sure know how to make them cheap, and they sure know how to make them quick. If I had a small selection of hand tools and a drill, I could basically reduce this complete trailer to a pile of scrap. Because, well, really, it's held together by probably 90% pop rivets and, well, 10% hardware, you know. These ones here were the bolts that went through the final two pivots there. Of course, they have the nylon nut there at the back. And whatever that is, they're 1.25 inches or 1.5 inches or so. I'll have to pick up 2 more of those just because, well, why put it together with old hardware, right? So of course, let's run this down to my fab shop, and well, let's see if they can get her done.